Santa Clara County's Public Guardian's Office is facing criticism tonight.
Yes, some families tell us that the county is isolating their elderly loved ones, unnecessarily taking control of their entire lives, right down to who can visit.
Dan Noyce is back now with part 2 of our I-Team investigation.
Well, Dan and Caroline, I don't often get the police called on me for a story. It happens, but I didn't expect it in this case. All I did was ask to see a couple of ladies whose families say are being isolated by Santa Clara County.
I need my family, and they took that away from me. You know, what else can they take?
That's the voice of 82-year-old Gisela Reardon.
I can't do anything from in here.
I know.
Because this is like a prison.
It's like a prison?
She suffers from dementia, and her son Marcus made the recording during one of only 3 visits he's been allowed with his mother in more than 2 years.
They hijacked my mother.
The Santa Clara County Public Guardian's Office conserved Gisela, took over her personal and medical decisions in 2010 after she visited hospitals 19 times in a single year. A court investigator determined her family, including her son, could not care for her.
Maybe there were family members involved with the person, but they weren't caring for that person by the appearance.
Lee Pullen is the director of Santa Clara County Social Services. He would not speak specifically about Gisela's case, but said the public guardian does not conserve a person without cause.
It would have to be a constellation of situations. Was there money that was available to provide the elderly person care that she needed, and it wasn't being provided?
Marcus was living with his mother at the time the county took over. He says he loves her and was doing the best he can.
My mom wants to come home. We have a home. She has food, clothing, shelter. I can take care of her. I was taking good care of her.
But the public guardian kicked out Marcus and sold the house to pay for his mother's care. He ended up living in his car for a time, and Gisela was ultimately moved to an assisted living facility.
This is devastating. My mother and I are very, very close. We have always been very close.
Marcus is clearly frustrated with the situation, and a court investigator wrote he becomes hostile toward facility staff, yells, becomes disruptive, and overwhelms staff with his demands. So the public guardian got a court order restricting his visits with his mom. They must be supervised. Marcus says he recorded their last meeting to protect himself from what he calls the public guardian's lies.
They have done it to me, taken everything. Why? I'm not a criminal.
Okay.
I haven't done anything.
You managed to make your mother very upset.
I didn't make my mother upset. She's upset, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to turn off your tape.
Giselle clutched my arm and sobbed onto my shoulder for an hour talking about how lonely she is.
Linda Kincaid is an advocate with the National Association to Stop Guardian Abuse. She says not only is the public guardian restricting Marcus Reardon's visits with his mom, but all of Gisela's potential visitors. Kincaid was able to see her twice before getting kicked out of the facility. She says 18 members of her group have tried to call and set up visits with Gisela. All have been denied.
If the laws were followed and her rights were observed and honored, this would not be happening.
Kincaid points to the Notice of Conservatees' Rights, a document in every conserved person's court file. Unless a court limits or takes away a right, like visits from family or friends, then the conservatee retains the right to have these visitors. And California Code Title 22 states a resident has a right to have his or her visitors, including ombudspersons and advocacy representatives, permitted to visit privately during reasonable hours and without prior notice.
If you took your grandmother and locked her up in the spare bedroom, you could go to jail for that. But if the public guardian does it to your grandmother, it's called conservatorship.
I wanted to see if the public guardian is following the rules. I walked into Villa Fontana, asked to see Gisela and another conserved woman. The staff called the county.
The resident is conserved by the county, and we have to follow the rules. They have a court order that puts them in charge of the resident.
The public guardian's office told me by phone that I couldn't see Gisela or the other woman until they performed a background check on me, and they instructed Villa Fontana to call the police.
Why call the police on me? What danger did I pose to anyone at the nursing home?
I think you and the public should feel good about that, because that means that the public guardian, acting as the conservator of individuals in any kind of residential facility, is thinking first of protecting that person's interest.
Oh, come on. What about me was a danger to anyone?
I introduced myself to the officer who responded. He didn't really understand why he was there. He gave me an incident card and left.
We absolutely want people to see other individuals, to have socialization, to be around family and friends, but it needs to be done in a way that isn't going to be alarming to them and that we know about.
Marcus Reardon says I got just a taste of the trouble he's received from the county. According to the court investigator, Gisela, despite her dementia, is capable of choosing a president. They made sure she's registered to vote. Marcus says she should be able to pick her own visitors and choose where she lives.
I was wondering if I'm still alive, would they let me come home for Christmas, like just Christmas Day?
Now, Marcus says his mother finally got a phone in her room so they can speak more often. He's made a couple of mistakes in fighting to regain control of his mother's care, failing to show up for 2 court dates. It's been a stressful time, and Marcus felt the deck was stacked against him. Now, by the way, the public guardian said it would take 2 days for that background check. It's been more than 2 weeks, and I'm still waiting. Nothing yet.
Yeah. You want to ask, were they protecting Gisela or themselves? It's bizarre.
You know, their rules are absolute. They are in total control, and they should be able to see people like me. You ought to be able to walk in without prior notice and see someone. Right. It's their choice.
It's heartbreaking to hear her speak about this. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan, very much.